this shit off.
And we are here, and Andrew's not even ready. Look at that. And it's perfectly okay. Woohoo! Oh, yeah. Welcome to the live stream, guys. Welcome to the All Gains Live. We are here.
What's up, everybody? Good to see nobody again in chat. All right, guys, we're back with another podcast. All Gains coming at you. Today, we're going to talk about the sugar industry, and mainly we're going to be talking about Coca-Cola, everyone's least favorite and or favorite soda. So this company has a dark past, right? Everybody knows about the cocaine and the Coke, but what they don't realize is that basically, I think this is just another Coke. The company itself is basically the product itself is a tool to keep people weak, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people, I mean, let's look at the obesity levels in America that we talk about all the time. I mean, Coke is, drinking that sugary substance. It you feel good for like 5 minutes, and you feel like shit after. Coke, when the drink itself is not very healthy for you. Most of you people out there are still addicted to it and should not be. So we're gonna react to this video. Basically going over the history of Coca-Cola and dissect how, a lot of these companies have always been trying to get you and your kids addicted to this shit so that they can make you weak, which most of America right now is very weak. And most of you, not us, are statistically, these are facts driven by data, overweight and or obese. And it's very unfortunate that we've stooped so low as a society, but this is where we are now. Most people can't do a push-up, a pull-up. Most of you hate yourselves. You are afraid to say hi to a woman at the grocery store or anywhere at all. And you're not comfortable in your own skin. And doing things like eating healthier can at least get you a step in the right direction. So we're going to pull up this video by this YouTube channel called Moon. So shout out to Moon. He's actually now this video is actually edited very amazingly.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it looks pretty good so far. I only seen like the first like 10 seconds because I had to set it up. And it's a 22-minute long video, so let's see how we get through. Let's just go into it.
At the start, Coke was just a copy of a much better and more popular drink called Vin Mariani. Despite Coke containing a mixture of cocaine and caffeine, it sold poorly, barely anyone knew about it, and was about to be forgotten forever. But then, in just 10 years, one man used shady business tactics and some of the most advanced psychological marketing techniques to turn this drink into a global sensation. And now, 100 years later, Coke has become an international empire of exploitation, with the drink company now being accused of funding paramilitaries to assassinate union leaders in Colombia, sucking the poorest villagers dry of water, making the most vulnerable addicted to their products, and actually getting rid of their toxic waste by giving it to poor people as fertilizer. So how did this nameless mediocre drink become a global Coke cartel? Coca-Cola's origins as the company we know today begin with a man named Asa Griggs Candler. He was a drugstore owner, back in the day when drug prohibitions weren't really a thing, with drugs like opioids, cocaine, cannabis being as free and readily available as coffee. So when Candler met the fellow druggist John Pemberton and tried his carbonated cocaine caffeine mixture, he immediately knew there was massive opportunity here. But Pemberton had been having trouble selling the product, despite its addictive qualities, so he tried to market it as a health product. But after years of trying, it never really got
the pause on. We're going to go right there. So a lot, not just Coca-Cola, but there are so many different products out there that the mainstream labels as healthy foods, like
a healthy
like
product.
a lot of the grains, whole grains. A lot of these foods are still bad for your insulin levels, and they still make you fat. And they make you they give you a little burst of energy. Like it's like breakfast cereal, right? You eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the morning, and then like an hour later you're crashing. Or like when I know when we were in high school, we would have fourth period lunch or fifth period lunch. Many people don't understand what that means anymore, but we had like a 10 a.m. lunch. And tell us what the lunches in our school were serving that were labeled family friendly, child friendly, healthy beverages and foods.
Well, okay, so I know that from what I remember, I remember this was like almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, we're almost dead now. So
this has been a long time. So I remember, well, granted, I was always in the pizza line, so I'd always get pizza at 10 a.m.
Oh boy, 10 a.m.
And they would give us free milk, but you can also get like different types of sodas and water and whatever. And I know they would try to give you fruit and And what else is there? Oh, like the calzones.
Yeah, there was no
and-
grass-fed beef at our high school.
Oh yeah, yeah. No
Disclaimer.
burgers whatsoever. You could get
Barely. Yeah,
you
they
can-
were shitty, like
you-
quality.
You can
like
get like
burgers.
chicken. You can get chicken patties or like chicken tenders, but like that's not
Chalky
even,
milk.
Yeah, you can't. It's
That
not
was my
like
thing.
those things weren't even. You can't even consider them healthy because of how they are processed and how with the breading as well, all that stuff. It's just not at all healthy. And
yeah.
yeah, thanks Obama. Thanks Michelle Obama. You really did a good job.
Yeah, but like a lot of these companies, they market their food. Oh, yeah, like honey, like Cheerios, right? It market itself as like heart healthy, but that shit is not heart healthy. It's making you weaker, and it just raises your insulin levels. You know, all the sugar, especially Honey Nut Cheerios, like all these, it's all a lie. So companies like this have always been lying to you and your cravings just to get you to buy their product and make their company very powerful. Which a lot of these companies, like all the big pharma companies, are now extremely wealthy thanks to the dumbass U.S. government.
And also to great marketing skills. These people
Yeah.
who, because you also got to think about it this way: we are dumb, and I say we as in like the human species. We are dumb into believing what people say, and that's why people who market things and also people who do propaganda in the government. That's an whole nother story. The people that do these types of things that can market products and they can do it well, people will eat out of their hands for whatever that they're talking about, and that is pretty much what is going on with what happens with Coke pretty much after what he's talking about, because right now in the start of Coke Coke was just really shitty. Like no one would buy it, and the marketers who would the people who would market this were not doing a good job. But like it seems like they were trying to do like something to get it to sell, but we know that it doesn't until later. But yeah, Coke, whoever are your heads of marketing, shit, you guys did a really fucking good job back in the day to fucking get everyone addicted.
No, we got to undo your damn.
Got him anywhere. Cannon knew Pemberton was an easy mark as well. Having been wounded in the Civil War 20 years before, Pemberton had himself become addicted to morphine to cope with the chronic pain. His addiction had left the man in poverty, making him desperate for money in his final years. And so Cannon understood that this tragic figure was sitting on a gold mine, so he pressured Pemberton to sell his formula and a share of the rights to the company. Pemberton, with one foot in the grave and hoping to leave something for his only son, agreed to a measly price of just $2,300. With Pemberton dying just 1 year later, he would never know what his drink would become. In fact, according to stories from the time, Cannon finished his buyout of Coca-Cola when he bought the rights to the name from Pemberton's widow for $300, a deal which he made at Pemberton's funeral, with his widow eventually dying just days later in a mysterious house fire. And we'll never
So there's always been corruption, huh? You don't say.
Wow, that's just very coincidental. I see.
Well,
It just seems like it just seems like things that we see nowadays.
really know the true details here. Canada had all the records of the old company destroyed a couple decades later to cover his tracks. But no matter what, Coca-Cola's origins were tragic. But now that Pemberton and his ideas of a health tonic were out of the window, Canada was finally free to turn Coke into a real product. At this point, Coca-Cola wasn't being bottled yet. It was still just a syrup. Pharmacists would take deliveries of the syrup and dilute it with carbonated water, selling the resulting liquid for 5 cents a cup. And by 1892, Cannon had taken this business model over and was ready to give it the boost it needed. But at first, he struggled with the same issues that Pemberton had: low sales. People just weren't very interested in Coca-Cola to begin with. In fact, the drink averaged just 9 sales a day. But two things were about to launch Coca-Cola into the stratosphere. And the first of these was advertising.
Exactly.
Cannon knew the product was sound. You can't get a much more addictive product than cocaine and caffeine mixed together. So Cannon understood that the main thing that he needed to do was market the product to the masses. And this is when Cannon began the first mass advertising campaign of Coca-Cola's history.
The things, and like this is what I was saying before with advertising. These people who can market and these people that can advertise well, people will just eat the shit out of their hand, man. They will just eat that shit up.
Yeah,
they don't
most of
even
you
know
guys.
they don't even know what the hell that they're buying. If someone says the right things, tells them the right things and tells them what to do, some people will just follow blindly.
And most of you guys are addicted. You don't even know it.
Yeah.
Your guys. Oh god, yeah.
Anyone can find anything on the internet, including your full legal name, your personal email, your home address,
Like what we're not.
or do the hard work of keeping you safe online.
Sorry, Moon.
Aura.com/moon to start your free trial. Also linked in the
Anyway.
description or scan the
What about-
QR code.
Thanks, man.
Through a relentless torrent of billboards, newspaper ads, coupons, and even signs on the back of horse-drawn carriages, Coca-Cola became impossible to avoid. The ads often focused on health benefits, but the most effective ones simply branded the drink as delicious and refreshing. After this campaign, sales immediately went through the roof, enabling Canada to expand the business indefinitely. But another factor was pushing Coca-Cola to new heights, and it really had nothing to do with Canada at all. You see, the late 1800s were the beginning of a craze in America for a movement called temperance. Alcohol was seen by these people as a moral evil and something to be avoided entirely, which eventually led to legislated prohibition. As the movement grew, organizations like the Anti-Saloon League pushed people out of bars and taverns, but the movement paid no attention to the drug cocktails that pharmacies were selling. In fact, they were seen as a healthy alternative, which meant that instead of heading towards the saloon after work to get drunk, workers would actually go to the pharmacy to get high. And when they got there, they found that cocaine and caffeine-infused Coca-Cola on sale for just 5 cents a cup. And after their first pop, people just couldn't stop. The product was ridiculously addictive. And so in just 3 years, Coca-Cola was soon being drunk in
Addictive products. So many of these companies still do this to this day, obviously. Go to your local ShopRite, Costco, Whole Foods, go to your local grocery store, and you'll see all of these products. They're going to be probably on the edge of the aisles. In fact, a lot of these products they put out, they're like right as soon as you enter your grocery store, they put all the cookies and the cakes and all the sweet treats. They put it right in the front of the store for advertising purposes. They want you to look at that as soon as you enter the store. They want you to look at these sugary products that are going to make you fatter, weaker, dumber, and less intelligent in that order. They put these products in a certain place, and these are smart people running this kind of stuff. They do it so that you'll see them and you'll wonder and you'll look at them and look how good that tastes, or like the packaging to the product itself. They'll make it colorful with the leprechaun on it, or a Toucan Sam, Fruit Loops. Like they'll put all these, good characters for the kids because they want to, of course they want to get the kids while they're young. And it worked. A lot of these companies have succeeded in getting your kids addicted to sugar and all of these products. So then when they grow up, they're going to keep consuming it. And these companies are just extremely successful because they make that addictive substance, like how Coke used to use cocaine, which is extremely addicting. And then they would use sugar. It's all part of the plan to get you addicted. So keep buying it. Unfortunately, the consequence to that is that you're going to become fatter and weaker as a result, which is what the problem that we have in America now.
Yeah, it's a continuous thing. And the purpose that they want to make things addicting is, like Andrew said, is because they want you to continue to buy these products. They want you to always come back for more. And if they weren't as addicting, there's a higher chance that you won't come back. Especially if you think it's okay. If you don't think it's amazing, right? If you like it, but you don't like it enough that you would continuously buy it, then they lose money. But if they can make it addicting where they're just like, this is pretty good, but I don't know why, but I really want to keep buying more. That is where they get you. And it also has to go into certain restaurants and fast food chains that try to make things to where it's either too salty, so then you have to buy a drink, or where like you get soda and like Coke as an example, and it makes you want to eat more. It all comes together. Trust me, everything makes sense in the end. Let's continue.
in every state in the US. And just 10 years after taking over the company, Canada's sales increased from 9,000 gallons of syrup a year to over 370,000 gallons. At this point, Coca-Cola had firmly implanted themselves in the minds of Americans, but there was now a growing pressure to remove the...
And it's funny because it's all thanks to Prohibition. Because if it wasn't for Prohibition and people not really drinking like alcohol as much, then they wouldn't really have realized, because that's pretty much what everyone was doing, was just drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
But then now they can just get high and drink soda.
Oh, good.
It's all good.
the cocaine. So after 1903, they started processing the coca leaves to remove most of the cocaine, although trace amounts were still present until 1929. So Canada needed something to keep people drinking Coke. So we turned to a different, highly addictive white powder, sugar. Now today we all know too well the incredibly addictive and unhealthy qualities of sugar, but even just a few decades ago, this wasn't the case, and it certainly wasn't widespread knowledge in the early 20th century. It was this new combination of sugar and caffeine that spread like wildfire when mixed with Coca-Cola's massive focus on advertising. And to put into context, by 1911, Coca-Cola was spending over $1 million on advertising every year, the equivalent of $31 million today, and it was this magic formula that would remain unchanged for the next century, catalyzing Coca-Cola's growth to the top. Over the years, Coke would perfect their marketing schemes and their ability to co-opt trends. It's a common misconception that Santa Claus was green before Coke made him red. In fact, Santa was wearing red decades before Coke's first advert, although their first attempt at festive advertising in 1931 was incredibly successful for Coke, and over the years, more ad campaigns would shape Santa's image to fit their purposes.
The fact that he's smoking is hilarious. The fact that Santa's smoking, just seeing that is
These
that's just so
advertisers
funny.
will show you
Oh,
anything
man.
just to get you to buy their stuff. You
Yeah,
know,
this clearly shows it. This clearly shows that advertisers, marketers, they will get you to buy anything. They will do whatever they can. They'll make Santa be smoking Pall Malls just to make you buy a pack. It's
Oh, yeah.
insane.
At first, it helped Coke because people thought of it as a summer drink, so Santa helped convince people to nurse their Coke addictions all year long. Later on, Coke's relentless Santa marketing pushed the whole holiday away from religion and towards secular consumerism. Before he was
Yeah, think about that. Think about that. When you think about Christmas, you don't even think about it being a religious holiday anymore. You just think about gifts and you think about like just consumer spending pretty much.
which is what the economy wants.
It's exactly. It's what the economy wants. It's what these businesses need. They desire. They thrive off of us buying things. Again, for sometimes you'll buy it for other people, but they thrive on us buying their products just in general, regardless if it's for other people or for yourself. They just want you to keep buying things, and they will do whatever they can to get your money.
small enough to fit down people's chimneys and was much more elf-like. So Coke made him taller, fatter, and gave him a big white beard. And as Santa advertising ramped up, this image slowly replaced all the others. Saint Nicholas the Saint was being replaced by Coke Santa, and this consumerist new version of the saint worked perfectly to target children. Like the tobacco company selling candy cigarettes, Coke was making
What do you want?
Smoke. like those really old cigarette commercials where they'd try to get kids to smoke. It's so hilarious. I can't believe that they were just
Yeah,
allowed
the government
to do shit
has
like
always
that.
been lying to us, unfortunately. Nothing new here.
Yeah, no, never.
sure the next generation of children would be addicted to their products. All until 1919, when Candler eventually sold the company for $25 million. And considering he only bought it for a few thousand just a few decades ago, this was one of the most lucrative deals in history, and the new owners were ready to bring Coke to the world. Over the 1920s, Coke became widespread in places like the UK, France, and later Germany, and their sponsorship deal for the 1928 Olympics helped strengthen the brand internationally. But just like in the beginning, Coca-Cola were always ready to exploit any opening they could find. And that was when Coke came to Germany around 1929, in which they exploded in popularity. And by the time that Adolf Hitler had come to power in 1933, sales were already at 100,000 cases of Coke a year. Still a modest figure, but a clear foothold. And if Coke wanted to dominate the competition, they needed to have a strong foothold on all the countries in the world. And so they embraced the new regime, happily complying with Nazi regulations.
That's
So
funny.
Coca-Cola is a Nazi. Coca-Cola is
likes the Nazis.
racist. Yeah. So
anyone that's in the chat, definitely let us know what you think about all this, because this is funny.
yeah, Coca-Cola supports
They-
Hitler, so we should not support Coca-Cola, right? Am I right? So let's not ever
Yeah,
drink
let's
Coke
just
ever
cancel
again. Yeah.
Coca-Cola because that they we should all cancel Coca-Cola because
Cancel
they,
Coke immediately.
They love the Nazis.
Yeah.
They
Coke
wanted
was
to support the Nazi
Coke were
regime.
the Vichy French. They
It's-
gave into Nazi Germany.
And like that's so funny. And like this is like the reality of businesses, right? Businesses will
Once again, yeah, businesses don't care about you. By the
they
way,
will support whatever they need to, that if they know that they will earn a high profit on it.
that's
well,
why
it-
that's why companies
and-
market to women so
yeah.
much, because the women get in their feelings and they buy it out of emotional. So it's very smart for companies
and
to
a good
lie to women.
example. A good example of this is businesses doing shady, kind of, I would say shady things, but it's kind of like different things that people would find shady, just to earn a lot of money. Is that there was a deal? Hold on.
Yeah, drink water, guys. Drink water.
There's a deal, for I think the WWE, the wrestling company. They made a deal with like Saudi Arabia for like what was it, like $100 million or something like that, some crazy figure of money. So because that the regime that's in Saudi Arabia wants them to like do shows there, like twice a year or X amount of times a year, and like the Saudi Arabia, not the people themselves, but like the regime itself is kind of like fucked up because like I'm pretty sure they killed like a journalist or something like that, and there was a whole bunch of drama with that, and so people, the consumers like us, people like us, like see that and we're just like, what? But the company itself doesn't care because they got all that money. And
Yeah.
now they can do whatever they need to do because now they have all that money, and people are still going to watch the product regardless. And so it's these shady business tactics that these companies will do just to make sure that they can earn profit and earn your money.
Follow the money, guys.
It's all about the
Lesson
money.
learned.
In fact, they eagerly supplied huge amounts of coke to the 1936 Berlin Olympics, and later sent sales teams to Nazi political rallies. Even when the war started, Coca-Cola didn't want to lose their market. They tried to skirt trade embargoes for a time, but eventually they weren't allowed to import any more syrup to the fascist nation. So instead, Coke would make a new drink called Fanta, using waste products that were common in heavily rationed Germany at the time. Even when every other food and drinks were heavily rationed, Fanta was still everywhere. And by 1939, there were 43 bottling plants in Nazi Germany. And later on in 1943, there were 3 million cases being sold in Germany alone. But once the war ended, the Coca-Cola company fell back into place and completely stopped production of Fanta and went straight back to Coke again.
Right.
But playing both sides wasn't the only way Coca-Cola profited of the war. In fact, World War II was one of the best things to happen to Coca-Cola, as when war was declared by the USA in 1941, Coke was ready and waiting with a genius marketing move. It was going to be costly, but Coca-Cola's president at the time made an announcement that every serviceman would be able to buy a Coke for just 5 cents a bottle. Now, by doing this, Coke would lose a ton of money, rolling out the infrastructure necessary for this. But eventually, in the long term, this was going to be worth it. It would make the entire US addicted to Coke, and it allowed the company to send Coke around the world. Where the troop convoys went, Coke followed. Then the US government got involved, helping Coca-Cola set up even more overseas factories and infrastructure with taxpayer money. They even
What a surprise. As soon as the government gets involved, it gets
why
worse.
would the government want to be involved in a business? Why would government want to do that? That's a good question, right?
Why do they hate us?
Because the government aren't really allowed. I wouldn't say they're not allowed, but it's something that the founding fathers and the early American society of government, like what they stood upon was that businesses were allowed to just do what they needed to do. The government should not get involved whatsoever with business relations. But here are the government helping a business become more widespread. Now, why would the government want to do that? Could there be a reason? Maybe because this is, I guess, post World War II, right? Maybe this is a more of a move towards like capitalism, because I know that was a whole big thing just before, just around the Cold War time, where they were trying to spread capitalism to the rest of the world. So maybe they were trying to market Coca-Cola as like a capitalist drink, and like you should be like an American like us and drink Coca-Cola. Maybe it's something like that, but it's still shady. It's still very, very shady.
let Coca-Cola field special representatives in US military uniform. These so-called Coke colonels spread Coke to the entire military, and the soldiers helped spread it to the local population. And so by finding this opportunity in World War II, Coke had given themselves an international distribution network, partially funded by Uncle Sam. And over the next few decades, the emergency wartime factories and bottling plants were converted into permanent civilian operations. Everywhere the US had been, Coke gained a foothold. They used them to spread into the rest of the world. And in a world that wasn't really used to high sugar diets, it was like Coke was still using the old cocaine recipe. Even though Coke was still absolutely massive in the USA and was still growing, international expansion started to outpace domestic gains. So by the late 1950s, overseas sales made up a third of revenue, and Coca-Cola had spread to over 100 countries. And this was helped along by Coke's signature brand-focused advertising. You see, unlike traditional marketing, Coke's always focused on making sure that the brand name and logo were omnipresent. Simple logos and scantily clad pinup girls were often the only things in the advert. And it was this strategy that had worked so well in the US that helped cement Coke's name abroad. Meanwhile, in the US, Coke was always innovating on advertising. Their advert, "I'd like to buy the world of Coke," was possibly the most groundbreaking advert of all time. By exploiting cultural shifts, their international presence, and a focus on brand over substance, Coke had then made one of the best adverts of all time. But not all of Coke's marketing techniques have been so obvious.
Johnson, you're fired.
No, not fired. But the people who started these things should get fired, because they're the reason why that the country is like this now. 9 out of 10 people drink Coke. Just think about that.
Yeah,
And just think
and we are
about-
not one of those. So yeah, fuck you guys who tries to make us addicted. You failed. We are the
Yeah.
1%.
Yeah, we are.
Now, despite their claims to the contrary, Coke has been working on covert techniques in order to get kids addicted early on. Their co-option of Santa Claus is just one part of this. Other cuddly Coke mascots like the signature polar bears help toe the line. However, Coke ads don't appear on specifically directed children's TV. Oftentimes this is against the law, so Coke has always had to think outside the box to get kids addicted, which is why Coke targets things like theme parks and even schools. In fact, Coke is found in school vending machines around the world. Coke specifically signs contracts with schools to ensure that they only sell Coke's products in place of healthier alternatives. Some schools are even offered
Like,
bonuses.
we told you about
Yeah.
like our lunch and our cafeterias, right? All these companies, follow where the money goes. They have these corporations and schools and everything. They have these products lined up everywhere so that you'll be inclined to eat. Well, there's nothing else, so I'm gonna still drink Coke. That's why these companies make so much money and they gain so much power, and then they're able to influence more and more and more just by like all the money and power that they acquire throughout the years and decades. Especially Coca-Cola being around as long as it has massive power and influence.
Yeah, and they're able to license their products to other companies, like, for example, like they were given an example of like Disney World, schools, even restaurants, fast food chains. Like they're able to do that, and then they can, because other people, because these businesses will also continuously sell their product for them. So like these companies will buy the product off of Coke or Pepsi or whatever, right? And they will, get that product from Coke or whoever, and then they can sell it. And so then regardless, Coke is getting the money from that business that's buying it from them, right? So they already got the money, but now people who probably wouldn't have gotten Coke from Coke themselves are getting it from another source, from another place. And like he's saying, kids, they're making kids drink it earlier. And I know a lot of kids. Did you drink soda when we were in high school? Did you?
Well, when I was in school, I would drink chalky milk because that was my shit. But when I was outside of school, yeah, I would drink a lot of Coca-Cola and Pepsi and the Sprite and all the all the sodas. But now I just drink water
but you
and
know what?
almond milk
But you know
and
what?
coffee.
And I will say this, and no one will freaking believe me, but I know you will because you know me. I never would drink soda ever.
This is true.
Never.
Mike was always a water guy. Just
Only
water.
drank water. Never, no milk,
True.
no tea, no coffee, no soda, nothing.
I'm trying to get
water.
Mike to drink coffee, but he's not budging, guys.
Yeah,
I need
no.
your help. I need you to put. I need you to comment in the comment section for Mike to drink coffee if you want him to drink coffee.
Yeah, no.
He might
So
listen to you.
the corruption that the soda companies, including Coca-Cola, have tried to impede on me and on my peers has not broken through me and never will, trust me. But it has broken through everyone else, and it's a very sad thing. I'm just happy that some people that I know were able to break free from that. Ergo, Captain Fantastic right here, Andrew, was able
I was
to
just like,
get rid of that.
Yeah, one day I just stopped drinking like Coke, and I was like, all right. And I just started drinking more water and milk, and I was like, all right, I guess I don't need this. And then now if I drink it, it just doesn't taste right. Like I don't feel anymore. Like I don't like it. But I don't even really eat that much sugar or carbs anyway. So with my meat, I just like water. With my eggs and bacon and beef, and I just drink water or coffee, which is great.
But yeah, these companies they want to corrupt the youth because they know that they can get the money from them too.
Yeah.
Is based on how many Cokes they sell to children, incentivizing the education system to addict as many children as possible to Coke. And by taking advantage of how underfunded and poor so many schools are, they have then secured the next generation of Coca-Cola addicts. And Coke is also constantly lobbying governments to either keep the status quo in check or even extend their reach. I mean, leaked emails between top Coke executives have revealed Coke's grand strategy to beat new sugar taxes and get past the flimsy red tape. All of these measures are designed to instill a lifelong sugar addiction in children, with Coke even going as far as buying out Columbia Pictures just to get around advertising laws. Just recently, a whistleblower has released staggering new information on the death of Coke's conspiracy. If the American obesity rates were listed on the stock exchange, everyone would be buying, as they've steadily increased ever since mass sugar consumption began. Today, over 40% of Americans are obese, and a further 30% are overweight. But there's a reason that people keep getting fatter whilst nothing changes. You see, it's much more profitable for food and pharmaceutical pharmaceutical giants to sell quick fix band-aid solutions instead for the very problem that they're creating. The American Academy of Pediatrics, which decides prescription guidelines for the entire country, has recommended that everyone over 12 who's obese should be prescribed medication. Severely obese children should also be put in for bariatric surgery.
We've talked about this before on this channel. We've talked about this. This is a problem, and I recommend people to go to our channel and go find this video because it's very, very, very scary.
They want you to keep buying all the medicine and the drugs and everything because it's all part of the big plan of consumerism. And a lot of you guys are falling for the trap. You guys are failing and you guys are getting fatter and you're looking for medicine instead of looking for the solution, which is inside you, inside your mind, to actually get in the gym and make healthier changes. But you won't because you're too lazy and you'd rather get stupid ass liposuction surgery than actually eat healthier and lose weight the old fashioned way. But whatever.
Yeah,
The weak will be weak and the strong will be strong. And if you want to be strong, keep watching our channel and make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.
exactly.
complications of which can be life-threatening. Unsurprisingly, the American Academy of Pediatrics is mostly funded by the same pharmaceutical companies who sell the medication. And Coke actually rigged the system by paying off the American Academy of Pediatrics to pay the American Diabetes Association to silence facts on how damaging Coke really is for children.
Did you know that once they flagged it so that Coca-Cola got recommended to children? Like, kids can drink Coca-Cola, it's good for you.
But there was competition now. The only reason people don't pay attention to Coca-Cola's monopoly is that it's a two-horse race. Pepsi started later than Coke and struggled to gain ground on the giant at first. Multiple bankruptcies during the early 20th century meant that they were playing catch-up for decades, but they finally began to even the playing field in the 1960s after a lucrative merger, and the market share started moving in their favor. But lots of the new Pepsi customers were former Coke customers, and the rise of Pepsi was costing Coke their entire monopoly. Then later on, the competition got even more direct. In one of the greatest campaigns of all time, Pepsi created the Pepsi Challenge. The idea was to showcase people choosing Pepsi over Coke after a blind taste test, and it worked. By 1983, Coke's market share had been significantly eroded. It looked like Pepsi was going to overtake Coke once and for all, so Coke needed a dramatic response, and this is when they launched their ad campaigns calling out Pepsi, resulting in the rivalry known as the Coke Wars. Now, clearly any ad that convinces a Pepsi customer to switch brands would be a win for Coke and vice versa. But there was a second reason Coke and Pepsi were happy to slug it out in newspapers and on TV. By only talking about each other, both of the companies make it seem like there are only two options, Coke or Pepsi. In these terms, the other competitors aren't even worth talking about. It's not collusion in the traditional sense, it's still an adversarial relationship, but it does help ensure the survival of both brands and their monopolies. However, despite this, Coke's falling market share was historic. Coke had never faced such a struggle before, and if they didn't do something fast, Coke could soon become irrelevant. And so eventually they found their perfect solution in a new product. So-called New Coke was sweeter, cheaper to make, and beat the old Coke and Pepsi in blind tests.
Are you tired of
I'm tired of freaking soda trying to corrupt us.
Yeah, I'm freaking. You guys, we got to stop the bullshit, guys.
Diet Coke was also sucking away regular Coke's customers, so it looked like the traditional beverage was on the way out. So Coke's upper management made the drastic decision of phasing out old Coke entirely. Within months, New Coke was everywhere, and old Coke was finishing production. However, this backfired almost immediately. After years of ad campaigns and cultural entanglements, the sudden absence of old Coke led to outrage, and suddenly sales dramatically dropped, which is why only a few months after the decision, Coke walked it back and started making old Coke again, with New Coke dwindling in popularity, eventually being renamed and then completely discontinued. The only legacy it left was a failure and a warning not to try and fix what isn't broken. Paradoxically though, while New Coke was a complete failure, it did give old Coke a much needed boost once it was reintroduced. This rubber band effect was so big that people even accused Coke of framing the whole thing as a marketing stunt, but there's not really any evidence for this. However, even with this disaster, Coke's overall market share was over 40%, and it stayed in this dominant position all throughout the 90s and 2000s, and it was from there that they cemented their position at the top of the industry. Which is why, by the 90s, Coke's market share was now over 40% and has stayed in a dominant position ever since. Along with Pepsi, they control a massive global monopoly on soft drinks. But now that they've scaled up to the highest position possible, the company now only faces two problems: maintaining their monopoly and suppressing the truth about their product. Because just like the tobacco industry and drug cartels, Coca-Cola's empire has been built on addiction. In fact, a 2008 study on sugar's addictive potential gives us the unsettling truth. It examined 4 main attributes that make something addictive: patterns of binging, withdrawal symptoms, and cravings. That's why when rats were exposed to sugar intermittently, they developed all 3 of these behaviors as a result of changes in brain chemistry. And those same processes that occur from dopamine abuse from hard drugs are also very present in sugar consumption. The global addiction was harder to detect when the effects weren't so obvious, but they are becoming obvious now. Skyrocketing obesity rates over the past few decades have made it harder to ignore. However, Coca-Cola always had a plan for this. Along with other big players in the food and drinks industry, they worked for years to hide the truth about sugar addiction. That's why all these big sugar companies like Coke have always pushed the narrative that fat is the real problem to health, not sugar.
And that is where everyone believes that fat is bad for you. And now you look dumb for believing it.
Yeah, guys. Make sure you want to. I mean, some fats are bad for you, but that's like the trans fats and like the soybean oil, the canola oil, corn oil, all the vegetable oil. It's all crap. The good oils like coconut oil, MCT oil, avocado oil, olive oil. Those are the oil like egg yolks, which are actually good for you. So don't blame the bullshit. So a lot of you guys still don't realize that you've been lied to by these companies that are all marketing ploys and propaganda. It's all to make you fat, weak, and to buy their product, make them rich, and make you more poor. It's all part of the plan, and they have fooled the world pretty good. The government is still fooling us today. They're still hating on us. They're still making us believe things that aren't true. To this day, people are falling for it. People still wear masks in grocery stores. Unbelievable. But yeah, let's keep going.
And despite little evidence for these claims, it became an accepted fact. Lobbying and getting friendly with government officials helped seal the deal. And when people finally began to catch on after all the low-fat products didn't really work, Coca-Cola moved on to denying it entirely. They pumped millions of dollars into research that cherry-picks examples to try and prove that there's no causation. And once these stilted and biased studies came out, Coca-Cola then used them to argue against the obvious health consequences of sugar, with the end result of all of this being a massive loss in the quality and duration of many people's lives. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cancer are just a few of the very dangerous side effects of Coca-Cola's products, conditions which have taken decades of life of millions of people's life expectancy. These negative health effects also disproportionately affect impoverished people who don't have much of a choice or the education to know what they're getting into. But
I have a theory. I'm sorry that I just stopped it real quick, but I have a theory that if it wasn't for companies like Coca-Cola and all these other types of companies that use sugar to addict you to keep buying more, I feel like if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for those companies coming in and pretty much taking over, I feel like the health expectancy of humans by now would probably be double what it is, because I feel like with these products, it not only does it affect just our pretty much life expectancy on its own, but the way that it makes you feel and the way that you feel after after continuously eating these horrible foods uh hurts and disrupts the brain power of maybe scientists who are trying to you know lengthen life expectancy, right? Maybe they're not feeling too well because maybe they're a little fatigued, and it's probably because that they had too much Coke and they were eating all these Hershey bars and stuff like that, and they were eating all these bad foods and bringing down their mood, not making them focus enough, and hurting them. So I feel like in the long run, if it wasn't for these foods, I feel like we as a species would probably our life expectancy would probably be a lot higher than what it is right now, because I think
most
our life
likely.
expectancy is what, 75 to 80, something like that. I feel
for
like
now.
and like the oldest person ever was like 120 or around there. I feel like our life expectancy, if Coke and all these other companies didn't come in and pretty much blow up the market with sugar, I feel like our life expectancy would probably be at 110, and the oldest person would probably be 160. That is the theory I have right now, that I feel like that would be the case if it wasn't for sugar coming in and ruining everything. Let's continue.
to maintain their monopoly, Coke has had to do more than just protecting their addictive product. Their more recent history has been characterized by a pattern of snuffing out potential competitors before they can get a foothold, with Coke destroying local competition by any means necessary. I mean, in some cases, they've even been accused of funding murder to keep their costs low. Drinks and beverages unions in Colombia accused Coca-Cola of funding death squads to assassinate key members of the union, alleging their connection to a spree of paramilitary killings over the course of 13 years. Lots of targets were directly involved in Coca-Cola bottling plants and their unions, so taking them out of the picture is clearly beneficial for the soft drinks giant. Colombia also saw the world's highest rates of union killings at the time. I mean, in 2000, 128 union representatives were murdered in Colombia, so it would be very easy for Coke to get involved. However, the actual evidence is spotty, and it can't be unequivocally proved, as the court case between Coca-Cola's involvement with these union leaders was thrown out of both the US's and Colombia's legal systems. But what is provable is Coca-Cola's awful record in Mexico. In fact, Mexico is the perfect case study for how Coca-Cola behaves when given free hand to act as they please. In Chiapas, one of the poorest areas of Mexico, the problem is at its worst. On average, people from Chiapas drink over 2 liters of Coke every day. That's over 1,600 bottles of Coke a year.
Wow.
So it's not hard to see why Coke is everywhere. From
That is alarmingly a lot of Coca-Cola. That is alarmingly a lot of sugar as well. That's like taking a big ass bag and filling it with sugar. That's like what you're drinking every day.
What's with these ads with these women shaking? What the fuck is this? What kind of simp is this?
What kind of
simp
From the
crap
smaller
is that?
shops to the larger superstores, they all sell Coke. Adding in water insecurity, poor infrastructure and rationing, and you get this dystopic situation where Coke is easier to find than water. In fact, it's so entrenched in the culture that it's even been incorporated into some religious ceremonies. And Mexico's federal taxes on sugary drinks don't help after Coke slash prices across the board. And they can afford to as long as they can keep everyone addicted. And where Coke goes, eventually diabetes follows. Over 3,000 people die every year from the condition in Chiapas. But it's not just Chiapas that's been affected. Coca-Cola has gotten its claws into the highest levels of government. Vicente Fox, Mexico's president from 2000 to 2006, even worked for Coca-Cola before he got into politics, and eventually becoming regional head of the company. And it's these connections to the government that have allowed Coca-Cola to maintain its iron grip on the country. And you could say that at least Coca-Cola has given people something to drink when water is scarce. It is often the case that they're the ones causing water shortages and high prices in the first place. Even from the outset, making Coke is a reductive process. It takes 3 liters of water to make each liter of Coke. And this problem is at its worst in India, when a Coke bottling plant opened up in the village of Caladera in 2000. At first, it was seen as a boost to the local economy, but almost straight away, the desert village's precarious water supply was being depleted. Water levels, which had been stable for years, suddenly plummeted. Wells dried up, and farmers often couldn't get enough water to irrigate their crops. The entire community was nearly abandoned before the problem was brought under control. And the same story has repeated itself across other communities in India. In Black Mara, it only took 6 months for Coke to destroy the ecosystem. You see, when it opened in 1998, Coca-Cola's plants sucked up 500,000 liters of water every day, forcing the poorest people in the world for miles around to abandon their crops and homes. And then to make things even worse, to get rid of the toxic waste made in the production process, Coca-Cola distributed it to the villagers for use as a fertilizer. And when samples of the sludge were tested, they had incredibly high levels of toxic metals like lead and cadmium. All of the damages added up to nearly $30 million, and the people living there today still need to have their water supply delivered because of this contamination. And although the factory eventually closed in 2004, Coca-Cola still hasn't paid a cent in reparations or damages to the victims. And in fact, there's probably a reason you never heard of this. All the major shareholders in Coke would never want this getting out, and these are the same people who control the media, the governments, the press. And that's also why you probably haven't heard massive amounts of pollution Coke has given to the ocean. In fact, Coca-Cola is the worst company in the world when it comes to filling the ocean with plastic trash. In a survey of over 475,000 pieces of ocean trash collected, Coke made the largest portion of any brand, followed by Nestle and Pepsi. They're also the largest contributors to the million-plus plastic bottles that are bought every minute of every day. Barely any are recycled, and a large proportion end up drifting in the ocean for years. Now, Coke's response to this has mainly been surface level and designed for the cameras. Their promises to use recycled plastics in their bottles by 2025 or use 50% recycled packaging by 2030 really ring hollow when you consider their track record. In 1990, for example, they promised that 25% of the plastic in their bottles would be made from recycled plastic. And 30 years later, this is still only 10%. And even if they do finally follow through, it will only mean that Coke is polluting the world at a slower pace than they were before. It won't do anything to solve the actual problem inherent in selling billions and billions of single-use plastic bottles every year. But this single-use plastic problem that's ravaging the world's oceans is symptomatic of Coke's whole business model, exploiting sugar. By lobbying governments and funding biased studies, Coke were able to exploit sugar's addictive and harmful properties for years. But now with the resulting obesity and diabetes epidemic, it's so much harder to ignore, and we can only hope that people keep waking up to the dangers of sugar. But Coke has already started working on a plan B. Although they aren't working on it yet, Coke has been sitting on the idea of using CBD and other cannabinoids in their drinks for some time now. And when weed finally becomes federally legal, the doors will be open to all sorts of experiments in this field. If Coke finds out that by adding some certain cannabis compounds, their drink becomes more addictive, you can be sure they'll find a way to add it in. Similarly,
I've heard there are beverages. I'm pretty sure there are beverages that use CBD and like marijuana-esque stuff.
You guys are always looking for not even drugs per se. Well, yeah, a lot of drugs, but you're always looking for different things to give you that dopamine
Escape.
and that escape. You guys can't. A lot of people can't. That's why a lot of people are drug users and they can't live in the real world. They always have to live in fantasy land. They're always looking for a distraction, looking to have some kind of fun, you know. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in. People, because life could be very hard, so people look towards
Yeah.
these kind of
They
products.
can't live with the reality of what the world is. And sometimes, I mean, not a lot of people would be able to, but you just have to bear with it and go and push through.
Coke's been moving towards alcoholic beverages for exactly the same reason. They've already partnered with the company behind Jack Daniels, and they're making even more ventures into this area every single day. Because sugar isn't addictive enough, they now need drugs and alcohol. And if the backlash behind sugar continues, Coke will throw the whole weight behind alcohol and weed. In fact, this could weirdly be the new face of the Coca-Cola cartel, going back to their original roots of selling drugs. And if the history of Coke has taught us anything, it's that they'll always be ready to exploit addiction in the masses, all with the might of the world's governments and the most powerful men on Wall Street, doing collectively whatever's necessary to keep their stranglehold on society.
What a great video.
Yeah, guys. So, what have we learned today in today's pod class?
That
Today's
sugar is way too addicting.
sugar is
and
bad
it-
for you guys.
It
What-
is
what do you
becoming
know?
it is becoming the number one reason why obesity and diabetes are as high as they are. It is what is ruining the lives of millions of people, and it is ruining the pretty much how we see our, not even just like companies, but our government. Everybody is affected by it, and we are being strangled by the businesses like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and stuff, and we're also being strangled by our government, who let these companies do these things. And they let them because they know that people will become addicted and they will not think about specific things that might be happening elsewhere.
A lot of you guys just don't realize that a lot of these products, they make you weaker, and it really is a part of the plan. Because most of America, literally, I mean, most people are literally overweight and obese. And it's very unfortunate that that's how it is. And like people's body shapes are literally just out of whack now. Like it's pretty sad. But you have to, the sooner you can wake up and escape the matrix and realize that you have full control of your life and you can make better decisions for yourself, the easier it will be going forward. It's all about the decisions you make and how to make a healthier life for yourself. And it takes work, but you got to realize that all these companies are not your friend. They're out to get you, especially most of them. I mean, there are some good companies like Vital Farms, pasture raised eggs. Like, there are hero companies, I'd say, out there, companies that are really beneficial and need to support them. But a lot of these bigger companies that make you addicted so you could buy their product, it's not really good for your health or mental health. And it's a lot better if you guys can find an alternative to Coke or even Diet Coke. Like, just try to get back on water and or almond milk, maybe coffee, like the good stuff, right? Alcohol once in a while is all right, but when you overdo it's bad. These things you want to slowly take away and then get rid of completely. Like Mike and I have, we don't drink soda at all. So Coca-Cola is our enemy and we have to fight it. And we have to make the world a better place by getting people to consume healthier
Alternatives.
substances. Yeah, so you guys can thrive and survive, and we can build a better world and where people are a little bit more stronger and better willed. And what are any more thoughts?
Yeah, like we were saying, these companies, they want to control what you buy, they want to control what you decide to do, they want to control how you think. And the best way to do that is to make you become addicted to things, whether it's drinks, whether it's food, drugs, etc. They want you to spend money on not only these products, but on, you know, uh, procedures and medicine and surgeries and stuff.
And remember, they're going after your kids as well.
Yeah, because of the consequences of what they've done to you already. They have gotten you addicted. Now that you're addicted, now you're going to get these issues. Now that you have these issues, now they're going to tell you, oh, you're going to need to have this procedure done. You're going to need to take all this medicine, and you're going to have to spend more money. And the economy isn't as great as you think. And people who, live normal lives do not really have the money to be able to do this. And so they have to go into debt to then pay off these things because they believe that it's because of fat or whatever, and they don't see that the problem is the things that they've been eating all along and the things that they had believed that were okay, but they're not. And these companies do this and they don't care about the consequences to their actions. We need to become aware of the problems that we are facing, and we need to act upon it.
And as I said, just be aware they're going to go after your kids. So when your kids grow up, they can still keep buying these products and the company can still survive. So it's time for you guys to wake up, realize what's going on, and take the appropriate action to become healthier, better, and develop that all gains mindset you guys all have potential to have. So if you guys like this video, make sure you guys hit the like button with the like, obviously, and subscribe to our channel if you've not already for more awesome content. Make sure you, comment your thoughts on Coke in the comment section below. Let us know what you guys think, because your thoughts are very important as well. And you could donate to the Cash App if you appreciate our work. Link in the description below. Funds go towards the equipment for this channel. And with that said, we're going to see you guys in the next video or live stream.